Corrections officers across New York State have been on strike since Monday, demanding safer working conditions. Yesterday, Governor Kathy Hochul assembled the National Guard to be prepared if strikes continued. 12 News' Kyle Spisak was there this morning as protesters gathered again, continuing their strike.
Protesters set up camp across the street from Elmira Correctional Facility again Thursday morning as no agreement was reached between the state and correctional officers. The protesters began picketing Monday, and since then, the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, known as DOCS, has canceled all visitation for inmates. Protesters have refused to return to work until working conditions and issues surrounding solitary confinement, specifically the HALT Act, have been addressed. Candidate for New York's 21st Congressional District, Anthony Constantino, says changes need to be made for the safety of both inmates and corrections staff.
I think the number one issue is violence. Everyone's concerned about violence. Obviously, along with the violence, there's an increase in other types of crime like drug dealing. So there's surging violence, there's surging drugs. It's more than doubled in the last few years since the passage of the HALT Act.
According to CBS affiliate WRGB in Albany, in response to the ongoing strikes, the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision will temporarily suspend certain elements of the HALT legislation under, quote, exceptional circumstances that pose a significant risk to safety and security. 12 News asked to speak with some of the protesters, but a request for an interview was declined. However, NYSCOPA representatives say that conversations are being had at the state level. A representative of the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, or NYSCOPA, tells 12 News, quote, the past 48 hours, NYSCOPA has been communicating with the governor's office to discuss the members' concerns and solutions to a resolution. Governor Kathy Hochul spoke Thursday afternoon, saying she will deploy more National Guard troops if necessary.
Did a number of measures to ensure that the prison population, the existing guards who I praise them for showing up and doing their jobs. I truly do. These are tough jobs, but also the incarcerated individual population as well as administrators. My job is to protect them, so we've brought in the National Guard to make sure that we're not short-staffed. We also have more being deployed if necessary.
Mediation efforts are currently in place between the different entities set for February 25th, 26th, and 27th. I'm Kyle Spisak, 12 News, Chemung County.